Recovering from addiction is an uphill battle that can take multiple attempts, and it can especially weigh on not only those who are battling the addiction, but the people who love and care for them. This morning, I bring you the first of our three-part Saving a Generation series.
I'm just so proud of the woman that you're developing into.
It's a bond like no other.
She's my best friend.
But a few years ago, the relationship between 31-year-old Mallory Goff and her mother, Terry Isaac, was strained, almost broken beyond repair.
I almost killed him, you know, the stress and the anxiety and the worry, and it makes me sick.
Mallory struggled with drugs since she was a teen. After she married and had her 2 children, her addiction only got worse.
You know, I ran from the people that mattered, my family, my kids. It was mainly like the guilt and shame that kept me going.
She ended up losing her kids, went to jail numerous times, and began stealing from her mother to buy drugs.
At the time, it was nothing. It was like I was entitled. I'm her daughter, you know. If it's hers, it's mine.
Oh goodness, we got to know all of the different rehabilitation facilities across the state. Gave her chance after chance after chance, and tried to get her the help she needed. We're giving up hope here. You know, when is she ever going to get it together, or the fear that she wouldn't?
A lot of it is rooted in fear. Like the fear is, what happens if my child dies?
Dory Haddock is the regional director of Bradford Health Services in Little Rock. She says the first step in helping a loved one face their addiction is to acknowledge there is a problem.
There's a lot of shame and guilt in admitting that there's a problem. I think a lot of times the family, loved one, caregivers are well more aware that there's an issue before the patient is.
She also recommends seeking help for yourself before you help your loved one.
Going to Al-Anon, getting into support groups, getting into things that will help them understand that this is not their fault. This is not something they can fix or cure. You can love somebody by making them accountable, and you can love somebody the most by saying, okay, we will walk you through this treatment process, but we're not going to sit back and watch you kill yourself anymore.
We need to talk about it now.
And it's that tough love that Mallory says just may have saved her life.
I think it was hard for her to set those boundaries, but she had to do it. We have a great relationship now.
Laura Monteverde, THV 11 News. Over the course of 4 years, Mallory went to 5 different rehab programs across the state. Now she actually works at one of the programs she went to while in jail, the Exodus Project. She has her kids back, and she will celebrate 3 years of sobriety this August. At THV 11, it is our mission to continue to educate you about the opioid crisis and work to eliminate the stigma of addiction. Using drugs or drinking alcohol while pregnant can be dangerous for both mom and baby. But for some women, pregnancy isn't enough to quit. But there is hope, thanks to a program designed to help pregnant women overcome their addiction.
I started using probably when I was about 18, 19, after high school.
It started as peer pressure for now 35-year-old Grayson Moore. At 20 years old, her life changed.
I found out I was pregnant, and I continued using.
Moore was addicted to meth and drank during her pregnancy. Her son, now 14, was born healthy, but she continued to use and eventually handed custody over to her parents.
You know, for most people who aren't using, it was, you know, I'm a mom, so I'm going to be a mom, you know. But for me, it was a decision. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's really sad.
Over the next several years, Moore had 2 more children. She was arrested and in and out of rehab as she struggled to overcome her addiction.
I willingly gave all my kids to my parents, you know.
That must have been very hard.
It was very hard, but I also knew that I was going to be stuck in it.
There aren't many places in the state that will treat a pregnant woman with a substance abuse disorder, but a program at UAMS in Little Rock offers just that.
To date, over the past 2.5 years, we've treated almost 200 women, 6 years in the Department of Psychiatry.
Psychiatry specialist Dr. Jessica Coker runs the Women's Mental Health Program at UAMS, the only outpatient clinic of its kind in the state.
In order to qualify, you just have to be pregnant or within 3 months postpartum, and you have to be abusing substances.
The women take opioids to treat their addiction, participate in therapy, attend parenting classes, and undergo mandatory drug screenings.
I find it to just be really a gratifying experience that I get to help these women who are coming forward and saying, I have a problem and I want the help because I do want better for my children than what I had.
He's kicking me.
And that is exactly what Moore is focusing on today. 8 months pregnant and nearly a year and a half in recovery. She's working to create a better life for her and her family.
I don't look at my past as, a mess up. I look at it as a learning experience, and I hope that my kids can look at it and just walk down a different path.
This program at UAMS is the university is working with obstetricians to refer women to the program. And Dr. Coker says it really starts with those OBs asking questions of their patients, asking if they're using, and then being able to direct them to the proper programs like this, give them resources that are available, because there are places available. I think women who are pregnant are just fearful of seeking that help for fear that their child will be taken away from them.
For sure. I mean, it's a very scary thing to admit, but when you're able to admit that you're struggling, people are there, just like this program, to help you. And how brave of that woman that you interviewed to be willing to share a very dark part of her life in order to help others. And I hope that other women will hear that, hear her vulnerability in that story, so that they can go get the help they need to protect them and their kids.
I know that wasn't easy for her to share, but in order to help other women, she's doing that, and she's sharing her past. Again, that program, we have more information on it on thv11.com. I can't urge you enough. If you are using right now and you are pregnant, go to this program. They will help you. They will provide the resources that you need. Here at THV11, we are working to save a generation, educating you about the drug addiction crisis and sharing stories to help end the stigma. A brain surgeon at CHI St. Vincent in Little Rock is seeing the devastating effects of this epidemic firsthand. Dr. Ali Krish is the director of the Arkansas Neuroscience Institute at CHI St. Vincent in Little Rock. It's here in the OR where he spends most of his day.
On average, we do about 10 to 15 a week.
A distinguished neurosurgeon with 30 years experience, he's operated on patients from all around the world. Recently, though, he's noticed an alarming trend.
Recently, I've seen more and more young patients presenting with hemorrhages, bleeds in the brain, that normally you don't see in a younger age group. You usually have 1 or 2 patients every 3 to 4 months. But all of a sudden, we have 2 to 3 patients within 1 week.
Dr. Krish says those bleeds, which typically occur over decades in older patients with high blood pressure, are the direct result of drug abuse in adolescents and young adults.
The youngest I have seen is 22 years old, and this is very young. What happens in these patients is the process that takes 20 to 30 years is happening within a year or 2.
Dr. Krish says if these patients do survive, their quality of life is diminished.
You may never be able to speak or never able to walk without assistance.
Dr. Krish says his concern isn't only for the patient, but for the loved ones who may be using as well.
I address all the people around them because, unfortunately, this usually happens in groups, not only as one individual.
A devastating and sometimes deadly consequence of an epidemic Dr. Krish is seeing firsthand.
It is devastating.
Dr. Krish says he's seen patients who are using meth, cocaine, and heroin, but he also says marijuana has similar effects, and he cautions that with marijuana becoming legal in a lot of states, he's concerned that these cases will grow. There's times he's had to stop actually in the middle of surgery because the brain is so swollen from marijuana use that he has to close back up and then redo, go work on the surgery again the next day.
It's unbelievable what they're discovering now with the advances in medicine and science, that they can actually see the effects of this.
And this is unbelievable, because this is something that should happen to your brain, as he mentioned, over decades, 30 to 40 years, and he's seeing 1 to 2 years that's happening in patients that are 22 years old. That's terrifying, and their quality of life, as he mentioned, diminished after that. You don't have a life if you do survive it.
She did not want to die. She wanted to live.
It's an experience no parent should ever have to go through.
Phone call in the middle of the night from the coroner. Some man in the middle of the night calling, saying, "Is there anybody with you?"
On August 8th, 2018, Susan Weinstein's daughter Meredith died of a heroin overdose. She was 34 years old.
All the right signs were there, but maybe also as a parent, you want to bury your head and not think this could be my child.
Meredith's addiction began after a sledding accident in 2010. She was prescribed pain medicine, but soon began to abuse the drugs. She was in and out of rehab over the years, eventually getting sober in early 2017.
She told me, "Mama, I can't tell you that I'll never use again. I don't intend to use again, but I don't want to go back to that life. I want to be clean. I want to live like this."
When her daughter passed away, Susan did the only thing she could. She shared Meredith's story in a painfully honest obituary.
Whatever little tiny piece of good could come out of losing Meredith, that if it would help one other person or make one other person aware of how prevalent this is, I thought it was important to do.
The obituary was shared across social media, with people reaching out to Susan, sharing their own stories.
I've gotten a lot of response from people I do know, as well as people that are total strangers.
Her daughter's death opening the door for an important conversation to end the stigma of addiction.
I think people need to understand that this happens to so many good people.
Laura Monteverdi, THV 11 News. Police officers, EMTs, firefighters, all people you would expect to carry Narcan, an opioid antidote that reverses the effects of a drug overdose. But what about a librarian? Instead of just fighting fines, they're fighting to save lives.
Bun-headed librarians, clunky shoes, all the great philosophers. It was high culture.
Gone are the days of your typical library. Over time, these sanctuaries filled with books have evolved into full-on community centers.
We get about 355,000 people in here a year. In a county of 100,000, that's a lot of folks.
And with so many people walking through the doors of the Garland County Library, it's important to be prepared for anything.
We have an AED machine here. We have a first aid kit. Why would you not have Narcan?
The Garland County Library currently has 3 opioid overdose kits, one of them right here in the children's section.
It can be anybody.
Director John Wells says in early August, the library used general funds to purchase the opioid antidote. A training session was held for the staff on how to use it in the event of an overdose.
We meet different people every day. We have our favorites, our regulars, but then we've got visitors all the time and we don't know what's going on with them. So to be prepared to take that extra step is very important.
It's just some more tools that we have. We're all CPR certified, and so this is just one more step in keeping our community safe.
While Wells says he hopes his staff never have to use the Narcan, he says they're ready to respond if necessary.
If any of us can prevent that world of hurt and have a life continue, why not?
I thought I misunderstood this at first when I heard librarians having Narcan. You don't really think of the two going hand in hand, but they're right. With so many people walking through the doors, and even when I walked in, there were a lot of homeless people sitting outside. you don't know what everybody's going through. You have no idea, and an overdose doesn't have to happen instantly.
Right.
So they could walk through the doors, pass out, you not know what's going on. So.
Yeah, I think as long as people are trained on how to use it, recognize the signs, why not? Just like you said, why not?
Why not carry it? And right now there are a lot of grants to get Narcan into the hands of first responders, but not for libraries. Librarians are not included. Garland County kind of brought this up, and it's not included right now, but State Drug Director Kirk Lane says they're looking into ways to get them added other individuals, because the more Narcan naloxone that's out there, the more lives that can be saved. In Arkansas, Traveling Monument has made another stop. It's a memorial that puts faces to the statistics of addiction and opioid overdoses. And yesterday I got a chance to see it firsthand.
It's very emotional. It's very sad.
So often we talk about the statistics.
An overwhelming sadness.
But the real story behind the opioid epidemic is the faces of those who lost their lives.
Crazy seeing the magnitude of it, because a lot of times it feels like it's something that may just be affecting your family, but it can be something much larger than that.
This week, the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville is hosting Prescribed to Death, a traveling exhibit dedicated to raising awareness about prescription overdose deaths.
This exhibit is really to put a face on the opioid addiction that has really swept our nation and hit Arkansas particularly hard.
The exhibit includes a memorial wall made up of 22,000 small white pills, each carved with a human face to represent the number of lives lost to prescription overdoses in 2015.
We know when we see that one pill on the wall that represents one person who died, but it represents so many more people whose lives will never be the same.
People like Betty Hackala, who lost her son to an overdose in 2016.
It changes your life forever to have lost someone that you love, especially your child.
One of the most unique parts about the exhibit is the ability to add your loved one's name to the memorial with a click of a button.
Just standing here looking at every single face is crazy, and I definitely want to take the time and bring my roommates and my parents when they come up.
The University of Arkansas is the 5th stop on the nationwide tour of the exhibit and the first in the South, a collaborative effort among several organizations, including the Attorney General's office and student government.
It's important that we let them know their voice is being heard and that we want to do something about that, and this exhibit is a perfect example of that.
Putting a face to the statistics and educating people about a crisis that affects us all.
These are a lot of lives to be lost to something that could have been prevented.
The memorial is free and open to the public now through October 9th inside the University of Arkansas Student Union.